Welcome to the Thrive podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church.
How does your faith kind of play into it, or does it play into it?
What can be done about it? When I say the church, I'm talking about evangelical white Christians and the black folk who attend their churches.
Hello, welcome to the Thrive podcast for the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We are entering into our 6th year of this Thrive podcast, and we thank God for this opportunity. We thank God for your viewership and your listenership. The podcast is available on audio, on iTunes, and on Spotify, and on video on Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo. As always, we encourage your feedback. You can reach out to me at fredjeffsmith@gmail.com, fredjeffsmith@gmail.com, and let us know how we're doing and what we could do to improve and make the podcast better and more usable for you. I am honored and humbled to be surrounded by some esteemed colleagues of mine, people who I count not just as ministerial colleagues, but as close friends. Pastor Tommie in Gipson of the Donaldson Chapel Baptist Church, Dr. Errol Domingue of the Elm Grove Baptist Church, and Pastor Dale Flowers of the New Sunlight and Redwood Baptist churches of our community. And collectively, with a couple of others, we are Prophetic Voices, a coalition of concerned clergy. And I have asked my friends to come and share with me today and to share with you today our thoughts as we move closer to our Saturday Black History classes that we are going to be offering throughout the month of February. Every Saturday in February, for most of us, for Donaldson Chapel, it'll be on Sundays during their Sunday school hour, but we will be offering Black History courses designed to help to enhance our young people's knowledge of their own past and to perhaps help serve as a catalyst to propel them forward in their thinking as to what they can do in the future. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming by and sharing with us today. So, what do you think about what it is that has brought us to this point, to make this decision to undertake this project?
I think it is the dominant culture's last gasp attempt. They're putting all their fight in making sure that the myth of white supremacy remains. And so as they try to choke real history out of the school systems, out of formal education, it is up to us, right? People who know better, in our churches, in our homes, at the dinner table, wherever we can gather with our people, especially our children, to make sure that they know the whole truth about what's going on. I think it's funny, really, when you think about it. You know, they talk about CRT without a real understanding of CRT, critical race theory. Right. And I'm sure Tommie can speak more to this than I can, but you know, I just think it's funny that you can't stop people from knowing the truth, and so that's what has brought us to this point. That thank God I have colleagues, friends who see the world like I see it, and want to make sure that, you know, the truth gets to our people so we'll understand who we are.
Pastor Flowers?
I agree with Pastor Domingue. Now, he did say something that, you know, you can't stop people from knowing the truth, but they have, you know, for like a long time. That's what they've done.
That old song by Loose Ends has been on my mind a lot. You can't stop the rain.
Yeah,
it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, like in my own case, I didn't really get into Black history until, you know, I was out of college. I was, you know, I was living in California and was working in Westwood right outside of UCLA's campus. And there was a little old lady, Melva Menace. Melva was from the Bahamas, I think. Haiti, I don't know where Melva was from. But at lunchtime, we had a bookstore next door. Melva would always go to the bookstore and read, just be in there reading. And I'm like, I'm restaurants, eating, coming back. So I said, Mother, why do you go to the bookstore every day to read? She says, because that's what you should be doing. And she took me in there. I went in with her one day, and she introduced me to Alice Walker, you know, The Color Purple, Toni Morrison. I hadn't heard of, you know, and here I am, Southern University, Kinley High School, T.H.R.I.V.E, whatnot, you know, right here in South Baton Rouge, and had never heard of it. And then I started reading that, and I read Malcolm X's autobiography. And Malcolm said when he was in prison, you know, he started reading the dictionary, and he just stopped reading fiction. So I said, wow. And that made me start really getting into history, and I stopped reading fiction. There were two things he said. He said, real men don't wear tennis shoes, and they don't read fiction. So I stopped wearing tennis shoes for about 6 months. That was it. About 6 months, I got to have my tennis shoe. But, you know, that's how I got into knowing my history. Yeah. You know, it was, you know, not until I was 22, 23 years old. And I think we have to make sure that our young people know our history, that it doesn't get to that point before they begin to have a thirst for who we are and where we've come from.
Yeah, and I agree with Errol and Dale. I grew up in a household where if you had a question, you had to go pull the World Book Encyclopedia to get your answer. And some of the answers that we had was not there, but like Dale in high school, I think we all at one point attended the same high school, except but it was James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time, autobiography of Malcolm X, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, all of Angela Davis books, and the list goes on, and more than just the historical facts. And even when I was much older, to read Carter Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro, that was an eye-opener because I didn't read that book till I was in the seminary, and it was a signed reading. I said, what this book got to do with the seminary? And you see that, as Errol said, we were taught certain things, and we all pastor predominantly African-American churches, and I think a pastor has a responsibility to teach the truth. And for centuries, the African-American church has been the anchor institution in our communities to provide learning and leadership and self-identity. For so often we could not have responsible positions anywhere in society except in the church and in the church. And integration was a necessity, but we lost something in integration. And now, because doing segregation, it was easy to write revisionist history. It was easy to because most of us saw on television was Buckwheat with the Little Rascals, Roscoe with Jack Benny, and somebody running around in the woods with Tarzan chasing them. But that was intentional. So I have to, and as Errol meant, that the critical race theory is an interpretive tool that actually been around a while, but it was expedited in the legal field with Derek Bell. It is saying, how does white supremacy maintain in control? Whether you're talking about race relationships and the economy. And it's very important to self-identity, very important to know the truth. Not teaching anything radical, just the simple truth. Yes.
When I was a kid, going to Southern Lab, every February we were responsible in elementary school to do Black History projects, and you had to pick. Well, in some cases the teacher picked it for you, but you were responsible for picking a notable figure from Black history, and doing an essay or research paper, some kind of project around that person. Now, granted, I'm old, so that was a long, long time ago. But it's troubling to me that succeeding generations of African American children have not been tasked with the same responsibility. Hence, we don't know anything about who we are. We know Martin Luther King had a dream, and we know Rosa Parks sat down on a bus and wouldn't give up her seat. We know that at one point we were enslaved, and if you ask people of a certain generation to talk any more than around those generalities, and maybe a couple more, they really don't know how to do it. They have no base of understanding. They have no education for that. Who is responsible for that if not the school system and the home? I don't put it solely on the school system. I think home bears a certain responsibility for that. And if the school system is not going to do it, and it does not seem like they are, and if the home is not going to do it or is incapable of doing it, then it becomes the province of the African American church to step in and fill the gap and try to provide some kind of substantive education about who we are, where we came from, and where it is that we are trying to go. Everybody's mentioned CRT, critical race theory. What critical race theory essentially says is that there are systemic problems that exist within America that have led to the racial inequities that we currently have. That's a very narrow explanation of what CRT. So my question is not why is CRT coming under the microscope or the magnifying glass of so many folk. My question is, what took it so long? What took us so long to finally get to the place where we start talking about systemic problems that exist? I learned about systemic problems that existed within this community, not in a classroom, at the dinner table, listening to conversations that took place at the dinner table. And so I'm wondering, what is it about our people, our community, in succeeding generations in this 21st century, that we have lost the ability to hold these conversations with each other, apart from schools and churches and things. Why is it that we have to do this because nobody else is? It's an open-ended question, but...
Well, I think that your father and my mentor, my father in the ministry, he would always quote the late Reverend T.J. Gipson, who actually led the first bus boycott in the country. Church is only 2 or 3 blocks from here. And he said folks would always ask Reverend Gipson, can you repeat that with this issue or that issue? And he said, do you think our folk going to leave their comfortable jobs in their safe positions to place themselves at risk to do radical actions? And what I'm getting at is assimilation. I think it's a sociological phenomenon that when you have that synergy, that assimilation, you lose something. You lose something, and I think we have been naive to think. You remember we had a period where the media was promoting at the election of Barack Obama, do we live in a colorblind society? No. When you go to work, you find out that you're not in a colorblind society.
Right.
When you standing on the elevator and if you refuse to get on the elevator because you're standing there, you know you're not in a colorblind society. So, and I think we do teach our children. We just have to put some system in it, because I know every one of my sons, when he first started driving, he came home, he was angry. He said the police stopped him, and he said I wasn't doing anything. I said, welcome to be a black man. Won't be your last time getting stopped. You know, I think we do teach. We do teach, but it's how the problem comes in when you interact with what. And here's another problem that once was the dominant society. You know, that once was the dominant race, which is slowly evaporating. And so, and to keep, you know, the myth that George Washington chopped down the
Cherry tree.
cherry tree and Abraham Lincoln loved black folk, you know. Just not so. It's the economics of it, the economics of the system. And I think that's, as our young people go out into a capitalistic society and want to do well, they need to understand. They need to understand how to navigate the system and who they are. That I don't have to become an honorary white man to be CEO of this Fortune 500 company. You know, if I want to wear my loud suit and colorful tie, that's fine. You know, and I think it is not as bad as we say, because like these two young men are hip hoppers, young men, they're not gonna change the way they dress because somebody tells them that's what they have to do. And I think that's what we're facing. You know, so.
I think as a radio host that I listen to says, whiteness is a powerful drug. And the closer we get to that myth, and I want to keep calling it a myth of white supremacy, the closer we get to that, the more it makes us feel like something, you know, just like a drug would do. You know, the assimilation that Tommie mentioned, the honorable black white man, you know, I got this position, so I can't afford to mess that up, right? Then I'm gonna push away from who I am and who I know I need to be. So, you know, I think the more we educate one another, right? Not just children, but one another, about the truth of who we are, from whence we come, because we can't start talking about black people during the Atlantic slave trade, because then you're erasing, you know, tens of thousands of years of life before we even met Europeans, the dominant culture, you know. So when we start back there and show the people who knew how to conduct themselves in life, right, and how to build civilization, and how white people stole from us, right, and how crooked our people were treated, then I think it lifts us to the place where we recognize, oh, this is the truth. What was that stuff they taught me for 13 years in school?
And I'm going to shout out Southern Lab.
Yeah, that's where I was.
My daughter's there, and they still do those projects.
They do those. Good.
Elementary.
Glad to know it.
Yes, they still do them. She did Shirley Chisholm. She wanted to do Rosa Parks, or, you know, someone very familiar. I said, no, we're going to dig a little. And she knows everything there is to know about Shirley Chisholm.
Well,
This was a few years ago. So, yeah, I just think that it falls upon us. From what I'm seeing and reading, every ethnicity, every race passes on to those behind them their culture, their victories, and even their defeats. We're going to talk about the Holocaust until we leave this place or the Lord returns.
Right.
Because they teach it. They teach it. They make sure that they repeat it to their children.
And heaven help you if you speak against it, right?
Yes, indeed.
That's right.
Yeah, you ask Kyrie Irving. You know, you will find out. But we've got to get to that point where we are pouring in to our young people, not only those children around this table. I'm certain they have it, but those who may not have the parents that we are or aspire to be. And it falls to the church if the school isn't going to do it. And when I say teaching the children, but also the parents, we've got to show some parents the way, so then they can pour into their children and they see the importance of it. And it's a big order, but if we don't do it, it's not going to get done.
Yes, indeed.
You know, so we've got to step up, and sometimes have those arrows and bullets shot at us and thrown at us, and just do the work.
To teach adult and young to appreciate your heritage.
Yes.
That time moves on. Times moves on, and Fred, you may not know, but I know Dale, and you know, I defeat the stereotype. I'm a black man with no rhythm. Cannot sing, cannot dance, but I love music.
Yeah.
But I love music, and I tried to play in the band, and this guy taught that everything black was wrong, and to look over probably the greatest composer in American history is Duke Ellington, and so, and this music is a genre that is pure African American, pure created by African Americans. So I think we have to teach the appreciation to our young. You need to know. You need to know classical, ballet, and country, but to know what you brought. I think his name is Asante, but he has a PhD in literature, and he had to study Shakespeare and all that, and he suddenly realized that he had no interest in Shakespeare. He said he understood it, but the black poets, the rappers, I mean, they're poets. They're poets, and we continue to create new genre in music. We had work at the church some years ago. I was not there, and whatever work required the fire department to come out and inspect the building. And I was not there. My wife was there, and one of the firemen walked up we have a picture of Jesus, it's Black Jesus. And he was motioning to his friend and snickering and come over looking. I said, Lord bless that I wasn't there.
They would have learned that there.
So if I go to Japan and they have a picture of an Asian Jesus, I understand.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
And Jesus did not look like Michael Bolton.
Correct.
You know, Jesus didn't look like that.
Yes.
Who's the quarterback for Jacksonville?
Oh, the
Long-haired guy.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence. Jesus didn't look like that. He looked like a Palestinian in North Africa 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
He probably more looked like he was from Opelousas or Lafayette somewhere. That needs to be taught. But the symbol is important. The symbol is important.
Yeah, well, that's why they whitewashed it. Yeah,
you know,
it is.
And if Asia, they want a Asian-looking Jesus, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Fred, it's real too, man, because my daughter goes to a predominantly white school, right? So I got to be careful to practice Kwanzaa at home, to bring the right kind of books at home for us to read. Even yesterday, we had a conversation about the Atlantic slave trade. She had never heard of such, right? So we had to talk through.
In one of the highest rated schools
Yes.
in Louisiana.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it's real, and it hits us in the face every day if we're willing to deal with it.
Yeah. So, how would you respond to the accusation that to emphasize Black history is to, in some way, want to teach our children to hate other cultures, other races, other groups of people? And I ask that question because that's the way it was responded to me in this podcast. I had a gentleman here who was running for political office, and I asked him to give me his understanding of what critical race theory was, And he said it was a tool, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not a quote. It was a tool by which people are trying to teach black people to hate other races of peoples. What's your understanding of critical race theory?
From honestly, my understanding is that it says that all white people are prejudiced. Just from the context that they send out to us, and from what other people, including the black community, are saying. That's critical race theory to me. I mean, it shouldn't even be an issue, honestly. You're a human being, I'm a human being, we're both citizens. It should not be an issue. People are making issues out of stuff that should not even be there.
Should we not teach what happened?
Yes. We should teach everything. We should teach from the
So if
point.
we teach what happened, then we have to deal with issues of slavery. We have to deal with issues of Jim Crow.
Yes.
We have to deal with issues of systemic racism without me going through a long litany of things.
Yes.
We have to deal with the realities of systemic racism.
History.
And we have to deal with the fact that systemic racism has a direct impact on the current status of people today, economically, socially, psychologically. You were talking about mental health. That systemic racism has a direct impact on all of those things.
Yes.
I don't agree with you that critical race theory is being taught in any public school anywhere. I'm not aware of that. I'm going to go back and check on California. But I know it's not being taught in Louisiana.
Right.
But I'm a proponent of teaching the truth.
Yes.
And I have concerns about those who would cover up the truth simply because the truth is uncomfortable for one or two people. Now, I did my very best to correct him on that, and he was open to what I said. But what comes to me is, if he's thinking that, there are thousands of others who feel exactly the same way. Livingston Parish just passed some kind of rule within their school board, made it a part of policy, that nothing be taught having to do with critical race theory. Well, nothing is being taught with regard to, but they saw it as a proactive thing, just in case anybody was thinking about doing it. And when you read the quotes of those who supported the idea, all of it was surrounded by the fact that we're all one, and we shouldn't be teaching that one person, one group is superior to another group, and that kind of thing shouldn't take place. You read further down into the article. This is why you need to stop just reading the headline, and you need to read the whole article. You read further down into the article, and it's blatant censorship. They said that teachers, educators could not utilize any materials that had not been pre-approved by the school board, by the school system, in order to teach or even give any kind of additional education to the students without prior approval. So I know that there is a thought process out there among some people that by emphasizing black history classes, we're somehow doing something that speaks against other cultures, people. How would you respond to such an accusation?
One, what your guest showed you is how he or she was taught to be stupid.
Yeah.
Right? That's just really stupid.
Yeah.
If you put it plainly. Two, I would suggest, and my thought just left me. You got to come back to it.
And I would say it's fear, living in fear. I once heard someone say, and I had to agree with it. He said that our white brothers are taught that they are the best thing since sliced bread from first grade to 12th grade. So for the first 12 years of our lives, and we're all taught that whites are superior and we are inferior. Well, now when we come to say, no, that's not the truth. You guys are not superior, nor are we inferior. Let's tell the truth. And when the truth gets out there, then we can work together as one. Then we can be on one accord. But as long as you guys, and this is in the church, outside of the church, in our schools, in our communities, we've got to be able to tell our people the truth. We've got to be able to have them have some pride in themselves beyond what they're told about being captured in Africa and coming over here and being docile and agreeing with everything that Massa did and Massa said. No, there was some brothers and sisters, for the most part, who did everything they could to fight against slavery. Mm-hmm. But, of course, they didn't have the weaponry. Just like today, we don't have some of the weaponry that those who are the dominant culture have. But what we do have is education. Mm-hmm. And we have to properly teach our young people to use it to the best of their advantage. But let's tell them the truth.
Yeah, to piggyback, to answer that question in a twofold way. One, historically, chiming in on what Dale said is about the fear. The victor gets to write the history. Mm-hmm. So, and they have not realized they lost the war. You know, they lost the war. And this country allowed them to return back to the status quo.
Yes.
But they lost the war. Mm-hmm. But the people who were freed have no intentions of going back. And when they put up those rebel flags and those statues, we had no input into it. And we're not going to bow down to it. Mm-hmm. And I went to school in Richmond. They had a boulevard they called Monument Boulevard. And I mean, they had statues, looked like it was 20, 30, all the way like that, 2 or 3 block area. Jeb Stewart, Robert E. Lee, all on his horses. And when they started tearing them down and had all the protests out there, I called one of my classmates. I said, "Did you go?" He said, "Yeah, you took me." And I'm not going to tell you what he said I said. but yeah, I think it's the fear. And the other thing about teach the truth, I think common sense tells you that when the truth is taught, somebody going to get mad. Mm-hmm. Somebody going to get mad. But I go back to, this is a true story about what a local pastor of a predominantly black church was asked to speak during one of our troubled times recently at a predominantly white church. And they had a newspaper article. And I think they thought he was going to come in and say some smooth stuff.
Kumbaya.
But he said, "I wonder what white preachers are preaching about." Because he said, get mad. Well, if everybody loves, many times we're more forgiving than the structure. I'm not talking about individual people, but to get mad. But if both black and white and all other races are teaching love, nobody's going to get that type of angry, as what your daddy always says. It might be a little righteous indignation, you know, because what it also reveals that only a fool trip over the same rock twice. Mm-hmm. Okay, you resegregated the schools, so okay, that's fine. Give us the money. We can teach ourselves. You know, give us the money. So it's an important part, and I think pastors play a great. It's a fine line. When do you take a stand, and when do you go along? It's a very old movie from the early '60s. Ivan Dixon. I think it's Nothing But a Man, old black and white movie. And Abbey Lincoln, and he was in this southern town, and they were trying to unionize, and he lost his job, and he had other issues, and he married Abbey Lincoln, and her daddy was the big preacher in town. And he told him, he said, "Boy, you need to go back and do right. Just follow the system." And he was very respectful, but he looked at him, he said, "You've been stooping so long, you don't know how to stand." So, and I think when just teaching the truth is about taking a stand. I think too often we have folk who are supposed to lead are afraid to take a stand, and they don't want too many people to get angry and start taking a stand. So,
Yeah.
What do you think attributes to that unwillingness to stand?
Miseducation of the Negro.
Yeah.
I think there's an economics component
It's the fear of losing.
to it all.
The fear of losing.
I agree that there is miseducation. I also agree that there's a lot of kumbaya stuff that people want to do. But I think primarily it has to do with money. This nation is not so Christian that we can just eliminate the money component, even when you're talking about the church, because you can't do ministry without money. Very difficult to do anything substantive in America without having access to dollars. And there is a fear, in my opinion, amongst church leaders of African American background, that if I become too pronounced in my expression of displeasure with America, that somehow or other it's going to affect pocketbooks. Look at how most of our people are paid. We don't have churches filled with entrepreneurs or independently wealthy people. They work at the plant. They work at Exxon. They work at Dow. They teach school. They work side by side with white folk, and their check is signed by somebody white. And I would imagine that there is a concern that if us goes too far, that somehow or other it's going to affect the dollars that are given to the church so that the church can continue to do ministry. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I'll go with that. And it's certainly that fear. I mean, when we think of any movement, it's often performed by young folks who have not achieved anything yet. You know, they haven't become comfortable. And when you become comfortable, you don't want to rock the boat, you know, because I could lose all of this. I would agree with that being a part of it, but I would also say that some of them don't know. Some of them are ignorant to the truth because they've been taught the lie so long that they believe the lie. Where I went to seminary, I went down there among some other brothers and sisters, and I shook my head because they were being indoctrinated into what was being taught. And I'm like, what the? I mean, but
for the record, you went to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, of which I am also an alum. So I'm nodding my head because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, I mean, but my pastor, before I went down there, said, hey, you go down there, you get the information, you pass the class, but don't you swallow everything that they're going to try and pour down your throat.
Right.
And then he would give me books to read. Errol did the same thing. Hey, because he went before me, read this. And he kept me straight.
Yeah.
I could have easily been, as I watched those others, get indoctrinated and believe, and then I come back and teach that to the folks that God has made me responsible for.
Yeah.
So some of them are just ignorant. They don't know. And, you know, some of it is they choose to be ignorant. Some of it is, you know, they just are where they are.
I think it goes back to, it's financial now, but I think it's come down generation to generation of people that saw the slave who got caught running away, getting his head cut off, and put on fought back, that is, the rebellion, to seeing the modern day the lynchings of the 20th century, right? And those stories, I think, just passed that don't go and cause no trouble. And now they can't lynch us like that. Well, they do, but now they lynch us financially. And so the people we try to preach to, that I think you're absolutely right, who have to worry about paying mortgages, and like we talked about last week, they expect us to go out and say those things.
Right.
The pastor, the leader, do those things that might cause some trouble. Sometimes even, I know I'm right when I say we have all taken arrows for standing up for people that essentially say, well, we pay you to get out there and say and do those things that we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to Birmingham last week for the midwinter board meeting of our National Baptist Convention, USA Incorporated. And while anybody who knows me knows I ain't got a whole lot of good to say about our convention, one thing Jerry Young, who is the president of the convention, said that resonated with me was, in the next generation, if we are not careful, black churches are going to have difficulty borrowing money from white institutions in order to build or expand their facilities or operate programs based upon what we preach. They're going to start excluding churches based upon what they preach because we're borrowing from white folk, and white folk don't want to hear the pro-African message that black churches are known to give, or some of us are known to give, and so they will find a way to withhold monies from us. And I spent 2 days out there. I ain't hear a whole lot that made me think, but I did hear that, and it struck me because I think that that's very possible, and probably to an extent has already started to take place. It's not just a credit score, and it's not just a financial history. There are people who are sitting in rooms making decisions, and they're saying, no, we ain't giving them no money. We're not going to extend ourselves to them. So the lynching, to use your term, continues.
Yes.
Because we as a people have not taken full advantage of independence, of self-financing. In Baton Rouge, to my knowledge, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, there are two primarily black institutions. Two primarily black lending institutions. That's Liberty Bank and Southern University Credit Union. Everybody else is operated by somebody other than us. That doesn't bode well for the future. If they were to collectively take a mind and say, we ain't gonna fund them. We're not gonna give them the same level of support that we would give others. Your thoughts?
I'll go first because one is what's new, right? And you think about it, our ancestors walked away from slavery with nothing and built institutions without the support of the larger society, right? So what's new with that? Two, maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe then we will stop taking our money to their banks every Monday and making them rich, pull our money and say we're going to the black so-called, because I don't think they're all the way black, that's another sermon, so-called black institutions, put our money in there. That way they will have the means to loan to us as they should. I think it's a tragedy for our people, and the people who are outside of the church who are angry with us are right about it when they say we take hard-earned money by black people and go give it to XYZ bank that don't give a care. See, I didn't curse. about our community, our people, but they want you to bring that money, right? You're still a nigger when they're in the board meeting, right? But they
Don't
want
edit
your
that
money.
out. Keep it in there.
Right? So maybe that's what needs to happen. All chaos is not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Dale?
I'm in agreement. We need to pool, as Errol said, learn from our ancestors, pull our resources together, because I shouldn't have to go to someone who I know does not have my best interest at heart to borrow from him or her. around this table, we should be able to say, if I'm in need, I can come to Fred, I can come to Tommie, I can come to Errol. And you guys can come to me and we can say, you know what, I can't do it, and neither can I, but if we come together, we can get this done. I mean, that's what we're doing now.
Exactly.
That's what we're doing. We're teaching these classes, where we're saying we're going to come together as a unit and do what's best for our community. And we have to do that at every level if we're really going to be independent and teach our young people what true entrepreneurship is and what true independence is.
Yeah, I forgot what state it was, but the double duty dollar, that you make the dollar, your dollars go through the community as much as possible. But outside of the separate institutions, you know, corporate America responds to the consumer demands, and as blacks move up in some of these what we call white institutions have blacks way at the top. I think a few of them, the CEOs, are African Americans. So I think that you have to apply the pressure, like with the community development dollars, or the dollars that these major corporations and venture capitalists and those who fund projects, that you have to force them to spend the money where it needs to be, and that is not an easy task, because you know, some folks can have a shovel in a pickup truck and go get the money, but sometimes all we can get is a new car loan. You know.
That goes back to what we were saying earlier, though, because they know Monday morning the treasurer's going to show up, right? The only way they will respond to us better in giving us what we need and what we deserve is to say, okay, cool. No, we're not coming over there. You don't need a loan. No, we good.
Yeah, I forget who it was, but this person was in the know, and they worked in the field that your background, urban planning and so forth, and they said what happened to North Baton Rouge was intentional.
Yeah.
It was intentional. It didn't happen by accident, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and going back to what Dale said, it's the fear. It is not as easy to do that today as it was 60 or 70 years ago. Yeah. If you take it to another field, I mean, police shootings been going on for hundreds of years, 40s and 50s. But George Floyd and some events before and after George Floyd, that was a turning. That was a transformative event, and with technology and the informational age, we always believed that it was something going on in the smoke-filled room. It's that it was always in front of our eyes. We just didn't see it. Yeah. And you just can't get away with this stuff. So I don't know what's going to happen, but the point in teaching history is, there are new methods, but the folks are trying for the same outcome.
I heard yesterday that, you know, we have proven that we can make you do what's right by us. We'll either shut you down and or, to use a term that dominant culture really hates, is cancel you. Think about Tommie Hilfiger in the 90s. Black folk was wearing, but we heard, it might not even been true, it was a rumor that he said something about black folk. We stopped buying his clothes. We don't even hear nobody wearing that stuff no more. So we've proven we can do it. If we just decide to.
Same thing with Gloria Vanderbilt, a generation before that. She made some comment about the shape of black women, and she didn't design her pants to fit the shape of a black woman. Okay, well, I don't hear too much about Gloria Vanderbilt anymore. One other question. the stratification that exists within the African American culture, the economic stratification that has come about over the past 40, 50 years, I see it more blatantly in the stratification that exists within the black church, that there is a contingent of African American people who have made their way over to white churches. Really and truly, it's not a large percentage of them. It's a significant number, but it's not an overwhelming number. Mm-hmm. By most statistical research data, it's 15%. 15% of African American people who find their way into white churches. My problem is there is now a generation and perhaps two generations of our people who don't know anything about the African American church. It is not their experience. And I see us as trying to do something that we think is beneficial to black people, and yet we have to be cognizant of the fact that there's a section of black folk that don't even know anything about us. How do we reach those people with what it is that we're trying to do? Beyond the Black History class, it's just the message that we're trying to convey.
Richard Allen started the African American church in this country, fighting for justice. He started it because the white church members would not allow the black church members to sit with them in the congregation. Mm-hmm. You know what he said? We're going to build our own church.
Yes.
And left them.
Yes.
And a black church that's not fighting for justice, this is just me, is not an authentic black church. Mm-hmm. White churches.
Say that again, please, please, so that I'm not the only person who said it on this podcast.
Right. All these minds are alike around this table. But a black church that's not fighting for justice is not a black church. It may have black people in it. It may be led by a black face, but it is not the black church. And when a white church certainly isn't, well, let me say this, most white churches certainly are not doing that. And when we flock to those churches, we are, I shouldn't say selling out, but we are denying ourselves. And what happens in those moments, when there is a problem, those same blacks who are in those churches, who do they come running to help them in that situation?
Something as simple as paying the electric bill.
That's it.
That's right.
And or when they get themselves in trouble on the job or something, or when there's an attack from someone else, they come running to us. Where's your pastor? He ought to deal with this. What the? So why are you somewhere worshiping with the people, being led by people who will not fight for you? They're fighting for people who look like them. So why not be a part of a church that's fighting for people who look like you? It boggles my mind. And again, I've heard, we've all heard, the black church, the pastor isn't educated, they're just up there putting on a show, not really preaching and teaching like I get over here at this church. Everyone around this table is as educated or more educated than any Caucasian white pastor in this city.
Yes.
So that's not something that you can throw around anymore.
Yes.
It is not the case. It is a choice that they've made for their own, sometimes selfish reasons, because in order for me to move up this ladder, I've got to associate with these people, even in this environment.
Right.
It's sad, and I'm gonna go on and on, but Tommie, Errol, I'm gonna leave it up to you guys.
One of the things in teaching history in the 1800s, what was taught by the black abolitionists and the Frederick Douglasses and Martin Delany, and the list goes on and on and on, was about elevation. I think one of the critiques that we all deal with. It's not sometimes we fight for justice about selfish issues that concern us, but we don't fight for justice, period. You know, I mean that there are other issues: immigration, environmental, lifestyle issues, fundamentalism versus this, and many folk, I think, don't come to the traditional church because they don't want to put up with the foolishness. You know, I mean, we all went through that when we were younger, but we stuck with it. You know, music, music. The music changed, because that's just culture. So I think we have to be introspective. The conservative. Black folks are more conservative about abundant issues. You know,
we are.
With no reason for being. You know, immigration. The folk coming back home, you know. It was theirs first. You know, it was theirs first, you know. So, I mean, from Canada down to
Mexico,
South America, further, all the way down, it was all theirs. You know, so the same system that oppressed them is the same system that oppressed us.
Yes.
But you know, a guy get to work 2 turnarounds at the plants. He suddenly.
Yes.
He suddenly better. And the elevation part of teaching history is that, and it's just not a cliche. You know, folks died for you to be able to go to school. The folks died for you. To, you know, you need to take microbiology. You need to learn how to build computer websites. You know, and you know, at one time all we could do is be school teachers and preachers. Right. You know, we have shortage of black doctors.
Yeah.
You talk to someone, what you raised in? Criminal justice?
I want you to know you're going to hear that piece about personal justice versus collective. You're going to hear that in one of my sermons.
That's an excellent point.
And you will hear me say that they're only coming home more than once, too.
That's right.
But I think even the so-called predominantly white churches with secularism, I think they're going to struggle just as much.
You look at what's going on currently with evangelical fundamentalism and conservative politics, national, state, perhaps even local. What you discover is they don't believe in Jesus.
Exactly right.
When it affects a conservative, they stop believing in Jesus. When it was Bill Clinton and a spot on a dress, well, you know, let's be moral, let's be upright, let's be proprietary. When it was Donald Trump grabbing women by their private parts, it's, well, we're not voting for a Messiah, we're voting for a president. They don't believe in Jesus. Because if you believe in Jesus, then you believe in Jesus across the board. I might not agree with everything you say about Jesus, but at least I'd be appreciative of the fact that you're consistent about it. I believe this all the way across. When Sterling happened, these black folk who went to white churches couldn't get their white pastors to say one blessed word.
Some black pastors.
And some black pastors. But they wouldn't say a thing about the fact that this black man was shot and killed by white law enforcement without a cause.
Yep.
And they could not understand why the black community was in such an uproar. Jimmy Swaggart stood on his platform and said that they deserve to be shot if they touch one facility, one business. if they threaten to loot one business, they deserve to be shot. And yet we continue to run and put our dollars in these ministries and give support to them. I don't understand. I don't understand the black guy who goes to Bethany. I don't understand the black guy who goes to Healing Place. I don't understand the black guy who goes to Family Worship Center. When I ain't talking ancient past, I'm talking recent past. It is clear that their Jesus and our Jesus ain't the same Jesus.
Amen. Recently, we saw them, in my opinion, be released to be concerned for a moment, and then when that moment passed, they went right back to being themselves. That was the death of George Floyd. Oh, everybody was. I'm watching brothers that never said anything like, whoa. But after a little while, we went right back to where we were. We've got to remain committed to who we are, committed to our God, committed to working for the greater good of all of us, and not just a few.
They believe in carrying their guns, and they're not going to give up their guns. I don't care if it's school children getting shot in Connecticut or people getting shot at a concert in Las Vegas. We will not give up our guns. We will not support any legislation that says that we're going to curtail the ability to buy guns, because guns are a part of our culture, and they are a constitutional right of ours. So you need an AK-47 to shoot a deer?
They have a problem with who has the gun.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
They believe in King's marches and getting beat up, but they didn't learn about the brothers and sisters in the bushes just in case they pop off.
That's right.
That's
right.
That's it. Back.
Yeah.
Well, they know now.
But even that Second Amendment, I mean, when you read it, when you really know
What
the
it
formation
says.
of it,
Yes.
it was every white male, I think 18 years or whatever age, was going to own a gun. And his reason for owning that gun was to keep black people in place, in slavery, in the inferior position. That's what the Second Amendment is about. It's really not about just owning a gun. It's about owning a gun to keep black people in place. After the overthrow in Haiti, white folks over here lost their mind. Oh, we can't let that happen over here. Arm every able-bodied male.
Right.
So we can keep what we have, so we can continue to build this country on the backs, the bodies of black people. So when you know, but our young people, all they hear is Second Amendment, because that's Second Amendment, but they don't know the truth behind the Second Amendment. And that's what we must do, teach the truth of our history. This is why the Second Amendment, when the Constitution was written, it wasn't written for us. It wasn't written for folks look like us. It wasn't written for white women. It was written for white males, free white males.
Yes.
And those who were in servitude, when they were somehow released from it, maybe they could go in the back door or something. But it was not meant for us. So let's tell the truth. When we say, these politicians that say they're going to get back to the Constitution, what do they call it? Back to our founding fathers.
Originalism?
Yeah, there you go. Well, originally, we were property. So when you go running back to what the founding fathers said, know what they said when it came to us. So don't just grab a hold of that.
Yes.
It was a compromise document. So, yeah.
Well, for these reasons and others, Prophetic Voices has made a commitment that we're going to initiate Black history classes on Saturdays and, in the case of Donaldson Chapel, on Sundays throughout the month of February. Yes, sir.
And Elm Grove.
And Elm Grove.
Yeah.
Elm Grove is also going to the Sunday model.
Okay.
So what I am encouraging our listeners to do is to register for these Black History classes. We're not charging anybody anything. It is absolutely free of charge. You register just so that we can have an idea of how to properly prepare, so that when you come, we are able to properly receive you. Shiloh is going to have them from 9 until 11 on every Saturday in February. That's the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th.
There'll be 9 to 11 at New Sunlight and 10 till 12 at Redwood.
Sunday mornings at 8:30.
8 to 10 at Donaldson on Sundays.
Okay. So you have an opportunity to go in. And the reason why we're doing it that way, rather than to try to get everybody to come into one central location, is we want everybody to have as much of an opportunity to attend as possible. And if we have these classes in multiple locations, that makes it more advantageous for you to be a part. We really want you to give us a couple of hours of your time 4 Saturdays in February, and we think that it can be the beginnings of something big. I hope that it's not an end to anything. I hope that it's the beginning of something much larger. Anything anybody want to say before we wrap this? I told you I'll be 45 minutes. We're already at an hour and 10 minutes, so we're well over our time.
Well, come out. Please come out and share with us. The material is here. Teachers are here. All we need is students. So come on out.
Amen.
I want to thank Pastor Tommie Gipson, Pastor Errol Domingue, Pastor Dale Flowers, and the other members of Prophetic Voices who are not present with us. I want to thank all of them for their commitment to this effort. I want to thank you for your listening. Thank you for sharing with us. We'll be back again next time.